Hey guys, welcome back. My name is Marla Hardy, and tonight I will be giving a brief overview of my project along with the outline and my timeline for completion. So, I'm doing my research paper on the magic bullet theory and the effects of it in African Americans. And here is what the magic bullet theory is, just so you can get a general idea of it. So the hypodermic needle theory, aka the magic bullet theory, implies mass media has a direct, immediate, and powerful effect on its audiences. The theory suggests that the mass media could influence a very large group of people directly and uniformly by shooting or injecting them with appropriate messages designed to trigger a desired response. The effects of this theory suggest that the media can manipulate a passive and gullible public, leading theorists to believe this was one of the primary ways media authors shaped audience perception. So I will be using this towards African Americans in media and how the trigger and the desired response goes to how they are treated in the real world. So my thesis statement, the title of my research paper is The Magic Bullet Theory and the Misrepresentation of African Americans in Media. So my thesis is, while the magic bullet theory experiments have shown that a person's view of the world and people is not influenced by media, the representation of African Americans in media proved to be different. The way that they are perceived in film, news, and television affect the way that they are treated in the world. So the first part of my paper will be introducing the magic bullet theory, telling what it is, saying the experiments that I researched. There were a couple of experiments that I researched, and some of them proved that the magic bullet theory was not real, but I will be saying that it is real. So I will be talking about the experiments, and then I will bring in my thesis. And this part of my paper, the introduction, I plan to have done by February 20th. So that'll be about like 2 or 3 pages for my introduction. So the second part of my research paper will be the representation in media. That is when I go into the African Americans and how we are perceived in media. So I'll go into movies, and some of the movies that I will be using, they're mainly Tyler Perry films. Just how he has the world to perceive the Black woman. Like, he makes us look extremely angry. So I'll be talking about that. And then I will also be using Good Times, which was about a family in Chicago that grew up really poor, a Black family, and like every time they tried to make it out, they couldn't. And I will be using a clip from the Boondocks, which kind of talks about misrepresentation in media. And from there, I will go into the news and how the news has shaped African Americans to look in media. And from there, I will go into like real life. And I researched some interviews from kids in middle school, boys and girls that were around 13 or 14. And they talked about how they were perceived in media, in the movies that they've seen, and how they're never seen in positive light. They're always criminals, or they're in jail already, drug addicts, not really father figures. And the articles that I read said that it really messed with them internally, and it caused them to have doubts about themselves and just be really down on themselves. So I will talk about that. And that part of my paper I plan to have finished by March 1st. The next part of my paper is I already said how it affects African Americans. The next part of my paper will be, is change possible? And I will go into some of the more positive roles that African Americans have been in. So Shonda Rhimes, she is a director, she made Grey's Anatomy, Scandal, and How to Get Away with Murder. And in those 3 shows, she put African American women in a beautiful spotlight. So she made it possible for other little kids and people growing up to see that they could be seen in a good light, and they weren't angry, but they were actual powerhouses, and they did really positive things, and they broke away from that stereotype. I will also be talking about Black Panther and the roles that were in it, and a couple of other films, and then I will go into my conclusion. So I plan to have all of that done by like March 31st, April 1st, hopefully. And to go into some of the research that I've used, I will be using all of my articles from 490. One of them was how the misrepresentation, can Hollywood do better in the representation of African Americans? And then I found this dissertation from a college student a few years ago, and he wrote on the misrepresentation of males in media, so I will use a little bit of that. I also have another research paper about film studies and misrepresentation from Dartmouth EDU. I also have a commonsensemedia.org. It's more of like a blog, but it also highlights the racial stereotypes in movies. So that is my outline and how I plan to go forward with my project. Thanks.